Good afternoon and welcome to the Family Office webinar. Thank you for joining us today. I hope that all of you are in good health and safe. My name is Hani Abuali. I'm the managing partner and head of Asia for the Family Office, and I'll be your host today. The objective of this webinar is to be interactive and to help you think about current issues given the insights our guest will share. Over the past few weeks, we've received a lot of questions on what's going on in China and how have they managed to get on the path of recovery, and how are businesses dealing with this post-COVID-19 situation. I can't think of a better person to help answer some of those questions and share his insights than Frank Tang, our guest today. Frank is the CEO and managing partner of Fountainvest Partners, a private equity fund dedicated to the Chinese market and managed by a Chinese team, and a long-term partner of the Family Office. Fountainvest Partners is perhaps one of the most successful homegrown PE funds in China. Before he founded Fountainvest, Frank was a senior managing director of Temasek Holdings and headed its investments in China. He's also a member of Temasek Holdings Senior Management Committee and the Investment and Divestment Committees. As you may know, Temasek is Singapore's sovereign wealth fund. Prior to that, Frank was with Goldman Sachs for nearly 11 years, both in New York and in Hong Kong, where his last role was managing director and head of telecom, media, and technology investment banking in Asia, which is when I first met Frank many years ago. After posing some questions to Frank that I'm very curious about, I'm going to open up the floor for questions from you, the audience. Before we get there, I just want to give you a quick overview of the Family Office. At the Family Office, we've been preserving and growing the wealth of individuals and families in the GCC over the last 15 years. Our role is to invest our clients' wealth in international markets outside of GCC, and our focus is primarily on alternative assets. The group is licensed and regulated in 6 jurisdictions, and we're managing just over $2 billion. The wealth management activities are run out of Bahrain and Riyadh, close to our clients, while the asset management business and investing activities are run out of New York, London, Zurich, and Hong Kong, where we are today, to be close to our investments. So Frank, thanks for taking the time to speak with us today. I'd like to start with just perhaps a couple of macro questions so we can frame this conversation. So from your viewpoint, how do you think China's response has been to COVID-19 from both a fiscal and monetary stimulus perspective? And what does the current situation look like?
Thank you, Hani, again for giving me this opportunity. Very delighted to speak with your clients. And we have 3 offices in Shanghai, Beijing, and Hong Kong, and really lived through the COVID-19 situation in China. So let me very quickly recap what happened. So there are 3 stages. Before January 20th. There was absolute ignorance about what actually happened. In Wuhan, maybe the local government officials initially didn't know how serious this was, and that's leading towards the Chinese New Year. Nobody wanted to disrupt the Chinese New Year, so there's in retrospect a little bit probably played down. And then from January 20th, when President Xi actually came on television about fighting COVID-19, to about February 20th, which about a month, it was absolute chaos, panic, out of control. People rushing to the hospitals. The toilet paper all ran out. Masks certainly ran out, and it's highly disorganized period of time. And then from February 20th onwards, that entered into the 3rd stage when the whole medical system start to churn properly. The doctors and nurses, many of them were colleagues were infected at the beginning. Now know how to protect themselves and have experience treating the patients. The lockdown happened, during the February, actually on January 24th, start to take effect very obviously. And also, one great thing that was invented was in China, now starting to spread out in the rest of the world, was establishing these they call Noah's Ark type of units, self quarantine units, so that these patients can be treated in these very quickly manufactured temporary hospitals where they can house hundreds of them. So China is now on recovery. We have about several weeks of working from home until end of February, and then our Shanghai and Beijing office gradually came back to normal. Hong Kong here, we came back to normal about 2 weeks ago. Before that, it was half opening and working from home. So in retrospect, I think China has reacted very quickly. And in terms of Hani, your question about fiscal and monetary policies, this time China is actually quite measured. So the first thing they did was to lower the bank reserve ratio twice. So that released about $200 billion of liquidity into the market, because you lower the reserve ratio, the banks have more money to lend out. Secondly, they have rapidly establish various policies to support healthcare industry, logistics industry, and anything that is related somewhat to the outbreak. So that allows many companies to be able to effectively help. They converted many textile factories into mass production and give them additional licenses. So that became quickly not a bottleneck anymore. On the fiscal policy side, this time, with all the various measures adding up, it will become another 4 trillion RMB type of, which is about 600 billion US dollars type of stimulus measure, very similar to the time back in 2008 during global financial crisis. However, this is a relatively much smaller percentage of the GDP today. China's GDP is, after the last 12 years, is already very, very big. So the quantum is not that big, and this time it's a lot more targeted. So the takeaway that we have is that China is actually quite confident that this, is going to be under control. Let's not panic, and it will be much more targeted, financial support to certain industries. We have a pharmaceutical chain in China with 5,000 drugstores, and they were among the first to receive a 2% loan from the government to make sure that they keep opening. And obviously, we didn't need that money, but it's good to have some liquidity as well. And the government is very targeted in terms of trying to support different industries. So as a result, one of the biggest worry for China was this whole supply chain was disrupted. In fact, starting in March, more or less 90% of the capacity has restored, and 90% of the logistics has restored. That certainly helped the e-commerce as well.
Yeah, it's quite an extraordinary recovery to that 90% level. I think it took the world a little bit by surprise. We'll get into that in a minute, but I just want to stick to sort of a bit more high level here before we drill down. We've seen a lot of political rhetoric, particularly in the U.S., about the China-U.S. relationship, and you've seen a lot of rising anti-China sentiment, and particularly since the global breakout of COVID-19. What are your thoughts on this? How do you see things on the ground? And importantly, how does it affect businesses as you see them, and particularly the companies in which you're an investor?
The U.S. China tension has become a big issue since the middle of 2018, and the trade war accelerated, worsened, throughout last year. And early this year, we thought to come to a nice truce, right, with the stage one deal being reached. Unfortunately, COVID-19 was not helpful, and people very quickly started to point fingers as to the origin of this spread. So I think the politicians, blame certainly is going to make matters worse. So for us, we are somewhat, we can say pessimistic about how this will continue to run, especially this is election year in the U.S. I think China so far has been pretty cool-headed and try not to be overly provocative or defensive on this matter. I think that might help. Mr. Abuali of former Singapore, who was the former UN representative for the Singapore government, actually recently commented that we usually follow a diplomatic rule that if you want to say something about blaming other people, it should apply to yourself and apply to similar situations. And the global financial crisis started in the U.S. with Lehman Brothers went bankrupt, wreaking havoc on the rest of the world. Everybody, lost a lot of money, and a lot of jobs were lost. Did anybody, go try to claim damage against the U.S.? So I think China didn't really try to go down that and just try to keep quiet, and this is not the time to try to blame each other. So I hope China will be cool-headed on this. I think in terms of the day-to-day businesses, obviously all the multinational companies are rethinking about supply chain. That's a very hot topic. And this will probably be a next 5-year topic as opposed to be next 5 months topic. Because at this moment, ironically, having a major production in China is actually very good. People are stopping temporarily about moving their factories to Vietnam and Bangladesh and all that as they were doing, because they think, okay, well, here actually is ensuring our supply. So there's going to be long-term implication. There's actually short-term, things as well.
Thanks, Frank. And where you are as an investor and you have some dry powder in your fund, I'm kind of curious how you think about what opportunities that could rise in the current market. You obviously have certain themes that you're thinking about, but looking forward, how do you want to exploit these opportunities as you look forward 6, 12, 18 months?
I think the COVID-19 has several implications. We summarized about 5 themes. One is industry consolidations, as the scale. It really helps on the cost on the cost side, and also the resilience of a scale business certainly is much better than smaller companies. So we are backing many companies that will succeed on the basis of scale. I mentioned about our pharmacy chain business, which has 5,000 stores. You can imagine if it's a chain of 5 stores in some particular city. They have to pay the rent, and they have to store a lot of inventories. That's a huge amount of cash flow burdens for them. And whereas we have much more financial wherewithal, and we also have massive purchase discounts versus the pharmaceutical companies. So that those are type of examples that we're pursuing. The second is on the healthy lifestyle, healthy balance. People realize that there's nothing better than the immune system. Don't count on the vaccines, and people just have to get healthy. So we are very focused on healthy food, healthy beverage, healthy lifestyles. We have a fitness business which got closed down in Hong Kong for about a month. We just reopened on Friday, and you can't even get in. Everybody is just waiting for so long and just went back. I think that we're obviously promoting the online courses as well, try to divert some of the traffic. That's very interesting. Online offline integration, that is a key thing. For all our board meetings with 20 portfolio companies of ours, every single company is talking about that. We have to talk about that, whether it is a consumer products company or it is a industrial company. Our hospitals is talking about internet integration. That's a third theme we'll be looking at. And the fourth is localized demand and supply. While people are narrowly focused on the supply chain issue, I think in the near term, we also see opportunities for China to increase its industrial businesses capability. So there's opportunities there, and also cross-border opportunities. We acquired one of the largest outdoor sports gear company last year, as you may have heard, called Amer Sports. They own Arc'teryx, they own Solomon, they own Atomic, they own Wilson. All these things need to. There's a huge appetite in China for sports, for outdoor, for getting fit. So how do you localize that quickly in terms of products and manufacturing? Manufacturing is easy. Products localization is actually quite difficult. We need to have Asian cut of the clothing, right? We have to have the Asian design incorporated, and we need to also have to consider the weather, because if you consider the German and Toronto weathers, then it's going to be heavy, it's raining, and versus half of the China is actually pretty warm. So how to consider that? So there's a lot of localization of products, but we see huge opportunity for Chinese consumers who have already got a lot of money, who want to own these products that have a lot of story, authentic. And so we have several projects we're working on in terms of bringing these international brands and technology, localize the design, localize the sourcing.
Fascinating. I just want to touch, because you mentioned global supply chains a couple of times right now. What sort of patterns do you think change with this, given that China has been the world's factory floor for so many years, and increasingly for the higher end products? What changes, what observations can you share with us about that as you see not just the localization, but the global supply chains?
Right. I think Chinese manufacturing, to be honest, already became uncompetitive, from 5 years ago, because the labor cost has been increasing, every year for many years, the cost advantage is no longer that competitive, so the low end has already gradually moved out to Asia. For example, shoes. When I was at Goldman Sachs, about 25 years ago, we invested in the largest shoe manufacturing business in China that makes, at one point of time, maybe 10 years ago, 80 to 90% of Nike Adidas shoes in South China. But today, less than 30% of Nike Adidas shoes are made in China. And they have massively moved to Vietnam and some other countries. So this is already happening, and we expect that after the COVID-19 will force the Chinese manufacturing industry continue to look for higher value manufacturing, rather than focusing on the low end manufacturing. So that's one implication, and we also see automation become a very, very important part of our investment thesis as well. Just given the aging population, less and less people coming to workforce, and you need to focus on higher value, more precise, manufacturing. So automation, robotic technology is something that is very important. Materials, semiconductor. Those are things very much the know-how is in the Western world. So how China will develop that indigenously without relying on other people, that is something. So we for example, are working on a couple of materials companies that could be very much helpful in China.
Interesting. When we think about capital markets, and of course, given your background, you have a lot more perspective on capital markets than just the private markets. How do you see that changing in the next few years? Will there be more Chinese companies following Alibaba and others into relisting from NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange to Hong Kong? How does that change, particularly as we saw over the weekend, the U.S. current administration wanting to perhaps force companies from not investing in China? So how do you think that plays out?
Yeah, I think historically the Chinese companies look up to New York Stock Exchange and Nasdaq on IPOs. This is very high corporate governance standards, the gold standard for capital markets. So today, I think many companies, especially the internet-related companies, not so much of the traditional industries, the internet companies all gather on Nasdaq or New York Stock Exchange, right? And a lot of people who really understand in these businesses are there. So I think there's still a lot of desire to go to US to be together in that space. That being said, I think two things happening. One is obviously there's what you said, the noises, and secondly, the domestic investors, Asia-based investors, are actually increasing their purchasing power and interest in this type of capital market stories, and therefore, many companies have now chosen to list in Hong Kong or in the Shanghai or Shenzhen local exchanges. Liquidity is good. People understand the story. People understand the brand. People, can find out information quickly here. So why not? So I think for many companies, they just go straight to the Chinese stock exchanges or Hong Kong Stock Exchange, and for other companies who are already listed in the U.S., like Alibaba, they will not delist from US. I think they will just create a second listing, as Alibaba just did in November last year, and that's what apparently what JD is going to do. For our companies, I think it just means good news. I think overall, we now have multiple listing locations to consider, and that is all good. And I should tell you a story, because you mentioned earlier that when U.S. China trade tension is going on, there's government dynamics. How does business are thinking about it? Mm-hmm. I happen to be having lunch in December with one of the major Wall Street firms, CEO, and he talked about the recent meetings with Pompeo, with Mnuchin and all that in DC, and how worse and worse it could become for China, and this and that. And then he said, by the way, I'm coming to Hong Kong, just passing by. My main purpose is to go to Washington, is going to Beijing, because I need to get to the Chinese securities license that we control. And this is the golden window for us to get it. This is strategically important. How can we miss this big market? And the capital market is going to grow. And this is the purpose of my trip. So I think on the business level, people will continue to be interested in China. And we also very much, as an investor in China, very much hope that the trade talks will lead to a more transparent market, respect for the rule of law, is respect for the intellectual property rights, lowering the preference for the state-owned companies, and open up the market. When was the last time China suffered because of opening the market? So I think that those are very positive changes I hope the trade talks will lead to.
I mean, that's fascinating because what you're saying is you have one level of discussions amongst the politicians and a totally different type of discussion amongst the business people here. And I think what's not well understood, and I'm glad you touched on it, Frank, is the level of reform that's been happening in China, where, as your colleague or your contact had mentioned, if you're a major U.S. bank, you can own not just a minority stake, but actually a majority stake of a financial institution, which was not heard of, 20 years ago when I moved here, or even 10 years ago. So that's actually a major transformation, which I don't think is not well communicated in areas, circles outside of people that are in the industry. Let me ask you another question, and you touched on this a little bit earlier. Technology, you've been following technology for a long, long time, and indeed you've got partnerships with both Alibaba and Tencent. How has technology played a role in Chinese companies' handling of this situation? How does that change? So they seem to have adapted and adopted technologies reasonably quickly here. How do you see that in your companies?
Yeah, I think many companies are early movers on this already. Some are late, and the COVID-19 definitely is a wake-up call for many companies to adopt technology as quickly as they can. There are, the customer-facing technology using e-commerce, internet to engage with customers directly. There are internal technology applications like the conference call that we are having now. Everybody is doing that in China already. In China, the business practice has always been, oh, let's meet, let's sit down, let's have dinner, right? And let's drink. Having a phone call is already very awkward, let alone, having business meetings in video. Now everybody's doing that. So internally, how do people, develop that and the related, all the tools accelerating the digitalization of companies. But what most obvious was obviously the part that linked to the consumers. So the e-commerce as we know it is more like Amazon selling online or Tmall, Alibaba selling online. But this COVID-19 actually pushed all the consumer companies to a different level. They start to massively utilize each of their store salesperson to sell directly to the consumers that each of them are covering. Think about these salespeople, sales ladies. They are working from home. What do you do? When you're working from home, each of them actually have 50 to 100 customers at least that they regularly see. So during the normal days, in the last 2 years, they already accumulated the contact and try to remind them to come to the stores. It's a season. Hey, your birthday is coming up. I have a small gift for you. When can you come to the store? And and all that stuff. People are already doing that. Now this is the time that people like Tencent introduced the WeChat shopping platform to allow each individual salesperson to be a individual store, a virtual store, to sell, in fact, the virtual inventory of the entire company, not even just that little store. So,
Wow, how's that done? Can you just touch on that? Because WeChat is not, it's of course a super app, very well known in China, but maybe for our audience, you can explain a little bit more the functionality that goes into that, and then how do you make that into a store?
sure.
Through
Just think about your Instagram or your WhatsApp, right? So first step is you and your customers connected. Somebody has been coming to a store every now and then and buy a piece of dress, and now they're not coming. And frankly, I'm not even going to my store because it's all closed down. However, the entire company, we have one fashion retailer. We have actually one sold already and one we still have. So both of them, basically through the WeChat platform, think about it as Instagram again, to put the company's inventory directly available at the fingertips of the salesperson. Okay, the salesperson. So the salesperson then will be able to communicate through these video messages or live talks with the clients about the stuff they have, and they will be able to directly sell to them. And the logistic company just ship, right? They have been shipping food every day, and sending a pair of shoes over is very easy. So that allows one of my companies to be able to sell $2 million US of sales every day. Think about how many
Wow.
dresses they're selling in February. Right now, the numbers continue to rise. So versus last year, maybe 20 to 25% of the sales was already conducted online. During this past period, up to 40-50% is conducted online. And
That's
this is not just through Alibaba, right, which is a centralized Amazon model, a JD model, right? This is also all these thousands of salespersons managing their own clients.
That's insane. It's actually remarkable. I did not hear about that before, so it's quite remarkable. So it's enabling salespeople to be their own merchandise mover, basically.
Yeah, yeah. And the
Interesting.
company needs to obviously develop a lot of basic things, like making the inventory online available to the salesperson. They can intelligently market that, having the live streaming work, and also to have the commission to be
Right.
intimately tied to that customer, even if it's not conducted in the store.
Interesting. I'm going to pause here for just a moment and let the audience know that you can. We're 30 minutes into this. You can submit questions coming through. I am seeing a couple of questions right now, but feel free on your chat box on the right-hand side to enter whatever questions you have for Frank. I will maybe start with a couple of questions that are coming through. Again, just to be clear, you can enter your questions onto the screen, and we'll pose those directly. We'll be seeing them as we speak. Frank, so on the first question, you've talked a little bit about technology and logistics, and I wonder, again, as a theme, how you think that plays out as an investor in that space. In China in particular, do you see that there's still a lot of room to grow? Has it been an area where you've seen overinvestment? Where are we in that cycle? Because it's a sector that obviously people are curious about in this type of environment.
Sorry, one is logistics. What's the other one?
Let's start with logistics, and then we'll get to the next.
Sure. Yeah. We are a big fan of modern logistics. I think these are two parts. One is the logistics in the traditional sense. So we invested in one of the largest pallet manufacturing and management company. So that's the wooden pallet beneath the goods that the forklift will use to move things around.
Mm-hmm.
And this turned out to be a very good business. We're number one in China. The company is called Loscam, with also a little bit sharing economy concept, because in the past each company owned those pallets. Right now, basically, you will have people at P&G who will be getting our pallets, put the stuff on it, and then ship to Walmart. Walmart will send to each of the local distribution center, and then each sent to their Walmart stores, and then they put stuff finally into the aisles. And at that point of time, Unilever will pick up the pallets and start to send their own stuff, right? So the pallets will be moving around between different companies with high efficiencies. So that's business we're in, and we're looking at continuously all these different things relating to the modern logistics. The other part of the logistics is the delivery, on the ground, last mile delivery. and that business continued to grow very fast. So Meituan Dianping, for example, is the largest food delivery company in China that we invested 3 rounds of. And so Fund 2 we did 2 rounds, and Fund 3 we did 1 round. So they are as of middle of last year been delivering 20 million meals a day, and that number continued to increase. Now we are working with them on delivering shoes for our fashion retailers. We're working with them now delivering medicine from our LBX pharmacy chains, and that's it's currently happening. So they obviously need to be trained and make sure that, because the medicine is complicated to deal with, temperature and all that. So they've been developing those capabilities to deliver more and more things. So I think that there's a lot of different there's a lot of room to grow in those areas.
And Frank, I'm just looking at the next couple of questions. So one, I think they're looking at China and saying, you need confidence to come back into the market so that people can get out there and start doing the shopping and start doing the investing, etc. What have you observed? What that's happened in China where that confidence is already on a path to recovery? Because I think people are trying to figure out it's going to take 18 months, it's going to take 2 years, 3 years for us to get back to normal. How do you see that play out in China, and whether that plays out in other markets? But really, the question is about confidence. Confident people go out and shop and invest, etc., and save.
I think it's going to take a while to gradually come back to normal. Right now, if you look at Shanghai, where our biggest office is located, the shopping mall traffic is still probably half of what it used to be. It came back, but it's not like a fully packed. People are prefer to more shop online. There's some permanent migration on the traditional way of shopping. My parents live in Shanghai. They're 82 years old, and they are shopping groceries online. This COVID-19 completely changed, even for imagine 80-year-old people. So that's going to change. If you look at the roads, right, the traffic jam has come back big time. And in fact, is busier than the past because people now prefer to take private transportation rather than public transportation. So the car purchase, we actually expect to be going up. Based on market survey, a lot more people are now considering buying their own private cars. Well, it's obviously offset, but in the near term by the fact that income drops, right? So I think auto will continue to be a little bit flattish or weak in the near term, but we think that things are gradually coming back. Tourism will be probably the most affected industry that will take a while to recover.
Thank you for that, Frank. The next question here is coming from someone who's saying, as an outside investor away from China, they're seeing a lot of noise about China not being transparent with the data. And the question here, in your opinion, what steps is China taking to tackle this issue of a perception of lack of transparency, or perhaps that the data is not reliable? What have you observed?
It's a very good question. I think there are several dimensions of this question. One is that the companies, obviously in the emerging market, is still less sophisticated about disclosing information versus how they manage it. So when we invest into these companies, we have to do a lot of due diligence to make sure that the numbers are right. And usually the numbers are off. There are actually 80% of the reason because they just know how to do accounting. I mean, they're very, very focused on cash flow. They count every penny, right? But whether you can do a proper P&L to analyze the proper profit on a particular product, they have no idea. They don't know how to allocate different things. But you ask them every day how much cash you have received, and they know exactly that number. So, but there's 20% of the cases where the numbers are simply inflated or not right or faked. So we therefore, for us, doing due diligence in China, we spend so much more time and money on ensuring the financial integrity of those companies we invest in is there. Otherwise, we just walk away. There's just no compromise on that. So that's one dimension of answering the question. The second is in terms of the regulators in China is clearly ramping up the measures to ensure transparency, adopting the Western standards. So the Chinese GAAP, for example, is actually no different from U.S. GAAP or IFRS in most of the ways, and requiring very detailed disclosure, heavy penalty, including jail terms for securities fraud. So that clearly is the enforcement is coming up very rapidly. The third dimension is the rule of law and the respect for contracts. I would say, when I started investing in China in 2000, that concept is still a little weak. People rely on handshakes. People not so much focus on the contracts, right? And when you go back to the contract, it's, oh, really? I didn't pay attention to the language. Versus in the US, you pay so much to the lawyers, and the buy side lawyer and sell side lawyer, they focus on every single word of it, because they know that they have to honor that once you agree on that. So so this is a very different culture. I do see that that is moving towards the Western culture. People are spending a lot of money on legal, and a lot of law firms are making money, and a lot of lawsuits are being settled in the courts. So these are actually all very good, but there's still a work in progress. We still have to rely a lot on social bonding, in the sense that yes, there will be a contract, but ideally, when I invest in a company, ideally know some friends who are mutual friends.
Mm-hmm.
So in the end, it's about the reputation you have to protect for yourself to honor that contract. If we each know nobody in common, I would be a little bit hesitant. So this will have to be a sort of a added protective measure to ensure that that we can do business in a Western style. People honor what they sign up to.
Thank you. I'm looking at the next question, Frank, and it's kind of open-ended, so respond to it as you wish. The question is post-COVID-19 and its impact on the economy. When you're looking out to 21, 22, what sort of, as an investor, what sort of opportunities are you focused on? And also, what are the risks that you can share with us that concern you?
Sure. Yeah, I talked about some of the themes earlier: the consolidation, the healthy lifestyle. I talked about the online-offline integration and the localized demand and supply. From a transaction type point of view, we are seeing a wider range of opportunities post COVID-19, which will last through for the next 12 to 18 months. For example, right now there's quite a bit of distressed sellers. The company may be good, but those owners have a lot of financial stress because they are in so many different businesses. So recently they're negotiating to acquire a hospital chain in China because the owner is in another bigger businesses that's heavily indebted. He margined his shares, the share price dropped, and he needs to cover the margin. So that kind of situation start to emerge. Take private. So we did quite a few take privates back in 2012 to 2015-ish, and then the opportunity dwindled down. Now we are entering into new rounds of discussions because the public market has been reasonably depressed. The companies think that they are undervalued, so some of the founders, are now engaging with us on those discussions, so there's the wider range of discussions we're seeing in the near term. Buyouts is certainly emerging, and we're looking at some of these take control opportunities so that we can actually have the ownership and make changes in the companies. So that it was accelerated by the crisis. The risks is certainly which industries will be permanently disrupted by COVID-19.
Hmm.
Uh, and which company that we look into have the attitude and the capability to embrace the new changes. So those will be the things that they don't do well. They will be, we call it melting ice creams, and it will be just a matter of
Maybe you can give us an example of that, say, amongst the companies in which the 20 portfolio companies that you have. Maybe another way to think about it is, who do you think of the smartest of those companies? What have they done to adapt to this, and how do you see that disruption playing out? Um, Again, post COVID, you've had, whether it's your auto parts company or your healthcare, one of your many healthcare businesses, or your fitness businesses. What's this of the smartest ones? What have they done?
Right. The internet companies that we invested clearly are the fastest adopters because they already have that DNA. Tuhu, for example, our auto aftermarket services company, is expanding very fast. So what they do is, after your car goes out of warranty after 5 years, you probably no longer go back to the dealership, which is very expensive. You will go to a shop that can repair, change your tires and all that. Our company is a chain, so they provide consistent services, but they also have an app, right? So they develop this app. They know who you are, what car you have, and what the parts that you need to maintain. They remind you about maintenance, and they also know what was the tire or lubricant oil you were using. So they will remind you, and you will be
And
able
how
to.
are they reminding you? Is that through a
Oh, there's
notification?
app. There's app. Yeah, yeah. So they will remind you that, hey, time is up. You need to. This is about the time you come to check your oil, check your everything, right? And often the customers themselves will say, okay, well, I need to fix things, right? So they will get on the app, and you will be able to book a shop at your convenience, at a time of your convenience, and they will say, okay, this is exactly the parts that your car is using. It could be authentic. We can give you another alternative, much cheaper. And by the way, this is what you bought last time, if there was such a purchase already, right? So you just click the button, and those parts will be shipped to the shops the next day. So you will just go at that time to that location you choose, drive into that bay number C, and no question asked, no negotiation. Even the payment, you don't need to handle any cash, right? So everything is on your app. So they just come in and do the service. For the store, it's almost no inventory because everything is ordered by you, the customer, 1 day earlier, right? And for the customer is totally nothing, and you can type in your comments, so the shops will be very motivated to serve you well. So once you have that experience, then it's very difficult to go to a mom and pop shop on the street, who's gonna quote you all the random prices, and you not even know whether these are fake parts or not. So and for the shops, so now what they're doing is, number one, they very quickly expand their stores, and they are acquiring some of the existing stores. And as I said, for those individual shops, they have to store so much inventory, and they have to pay the rent. It's just for here they can make less profit on each service, but the whole day schedule is fully packed. So those are the type of things they do, and they're going to all the manufacturing companies. I mean, the OEM auto companies who are having a tough time, and they say, okay, well, we're gonna offer you a deal. We're gonna have minimum 1 million tires we buy from you. Give me the biggest discount you ever offer to anybody, plus more. So that's an example that they will be more aggressively pushing for this. I mentioned about the fashion retailer try to use a different platform to expand the sales, and for the healthcare companies, our hospital, we have a hospital that has about 1,200 beds, one of the largest hospital in Northwest China. They have been working with. During this period of time, rolling out their own app, having the doctor be available to be to be able to see their patients. They applied and obtained from the government a internet license to be able to officially prescribe drugs online. And that's not a license that they grant randomly. So they are trying to figure out how to use that. So we have a study group as actually today. We budgeted capital to roll that out. So I think people are very actively learning about things.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I'm just going to tell the audience we're going to wrap up in a couple of minutes. So if you have any questions, I'm reading through. If you can punch through your question now, because we will be wrapping up in a few minutes. But just back on your hospital company, this is fascinating. So e-health or remote health, I guess, is an interesting theme as well. So has the government granted these licenses to anybody else yet, or are you amongst the pilot, or your hospital business piloting this in China?
They are selectively granting these internet hospital licenses in each province. So each local health care authority are given that power to carefully select. So people like Alibaba, they don't have that license because they don't have doctors, they're not certified, and the government, at the moment is not yet ready to do that. Whereas if you're an existing hospital, you're previously rigorously certified, and they will feel a lot more comfortable. When we get that, the difference is that you don't no longer need to physically come to visit our hospital in order to get the drugs. Now think about, China has 100 million diabetes patients. And during this period of time, nobody want to go to the hospital, but what they want to eat the same, insulin, medicine that they have been taking, right? They will take that forever. So, internet license solve that problem. We can just prescribe exactly what you've been using. I don't need to see you, right? So this is going to be, when it comes to specific practical, business results for us, it's going to be chronic diseases management.
Interesting. Another question just came through here. Here they're saying, what keeps you up at night? What's the one or two things that concern you the most, and what are you doing to mitigate it, Frank?
Two things that's usually our biggest headache and what worries us. One is talent. Talent is in shortage everywhere, including for our own industry, for our own firm, how to attract and retain the talents. Highest integrity, very smart, have the experience, and equally, if not more urgently needed, is for the portfolio companies to look for the right CEO, CFO, head of digital, head of procurement, and so on. So these type of talents is something that definitely we need to look for, and sometimes that often that makes a huge difference. I spend a lot of time interviewing. So the second thing is regulatory. So in China, there's still a lot of conflicting regulations, ad hoc regulations. Sometimes things came out without too much of a thinking, and that could hurt the businesses. So that in Western world, to pass a law, to pass a regulation, takes a long process, right? But in China, the good thing is that done. But the bad thing is that
efficiency in that.
They haven't carefully think about it. It could have a lot of ramifications. So we sometimes ran into that issues.
Terrific. I want to wrap this up here. I just want to say, as always with you, Frank, it's never enough time. I always learn from you. Your comments and responses were very insightful, very helpful for us and for many of our clients. I really, really appreciate the time that you've taken to speak with us, and hopefully we'll have you back here perhaps later in the summer to see how things have played out. I think for the audience, I just want a quick reminder that the next webinar we have is on the 21st of May, where we will have Tariq Al-Sayed, who is the head of McKinsey's office in Riyadh, managing partner there, who'll be sharing with us some of his insights as he's seeing things on the ground in Saudi Arabia. But for now, I want to thank everybody that signed on to the call. I want to thank you in particular, Frank, for taking the time to speak with us and share your deep insights. It's been a terrific learning experience, and I look forward to our next webinar. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Hani. Thank you and the family office for your support to Fountainvest all these years. And I should mention Abdul Mohsen. When we set up our business in 2008, Abdul Mohsen came over and that was one of our an early LPs. So we are very, very thankful to the whole team. So thank you again, Hani, for the opportunity to speak.
Terrific, terrific. You have a good night, and thanks everybody else for signing on.